What age do you think the average Canadian hits their first $100,000? Now guess when they cross 500,000. And be honest, do you think most people ever actually touch $1 million, or is that just something influencers talk about while sitting in front of a rented Lamborghini? Today we are going through the real numbers, the real timelines, and the real reason some people hit these milestones a decade earlier than others, and by the end of this video you will know exactly where you stand compared to everyone else in this country, and more importantly, what it actually takes to speed up your own timeline. Welcome back to the channel. If you have ever compared yourself to someone online who seems to have it all figured out financially, this video is going to give you some serious context, because net worth milestones in Canada follow patterns that almost nobody talks about honestly. We are going to break this down by age, by income level, and by the compounding math that makes the difference between someone who retires stressed and someone who retires free. So let us get into exactly when Canadians typically hit $100,000, $500,000, and $1 million, and why the gap between those milestones is not what you think. Let us start with the first big milestone, $100,000. For most Canadians who are consistently saving and investing, this number tends to show up somewhere between the late 20s and mid-30s. That might sound later than you expected, and here is why. The first $100,000 is almost always the hardest and slowest to accumulate, because in the early years, your contributions are doing almost all of the work. Compounding has not kicked in yet in any meaningful way. If you are putting away even $500 a month into a diversified investment portfolio starting in your early 20s, you are typically looking at around 10 to 12 years to cross that six-figure mark, depending on market returns. But if your income grows faster, if you avoid high-interest debt, and if you increase your contributions as you get raises, that timeline can shrink dramatically. This is the stage where most people quit, because the growth feels invisible. Your account barely seems to move for years, and then suddenly it does. The people who hit $100,000 fastest are not always the highest earners, they are the ones who stayed consistent when it felt like nothing was happening. Now here is where it gets interesting, the jump from $100,000 to $500,000. Logically you might think this takes about 4 times as long as hitting the first 100,000, but that is not how compounding works. For someone contributing steadily and earning average market returns, this stage often takes somewhere between 8 and 14 years, not 4 times longer. Why? Because once you cross that first milestone, your money starts working harder than you do. A portfolio of $100,000 growing at a reasonable average annual return can add tens of thousands of dollars in a single strong year without you contributing an extra cent. This is usually the phase where Canadians are in their late 30s to late 40s, often juggling mortgages, kids, and career growth at the same time their portfolio quietly starts pulling more weight. The $500,000 mark is where a lot of people start to feel financially stable for the first time, not necessarily rich, but like the ground beneath them is solid. And now the number everyone actually wants to talk about, $1 million. Here is the part that surprises people the most. Statistically, a meaningful percentage of Canadians who consistently invest do reach 7 figures, but it typically happens later than people expect, often somewhere in their 50s, and for some, not until their early 60s. But here is the twist, the jump from $500,000 to $1 million usually happens faster than the jump from $100,000 to $500,000, even though it is a bigger dollar amount. This is compounding at its most powerful stage. When you already have $500,000 invested, market growth alone can add $50,000, $70,000, sometimes more in a single good year, completely independent of new contributions. People who understand this stop panicking about short-term dips, because they know the real growth engine by this stage is not their paycheck anymore, it is their portfolio. So why do some Canadians hit these milestones 10 or even 20 years earlier than others earning similar incomes? It almost always comes down to 3 things. First, starting age. Someone who starts investing seriously at 22 has a massive head start over someone who starts at 35, even if the second person eventually invests more money overall. Time in the market beats timing the market, every single time. Second, Savings rate. Two people earning the exact same salary can have wildly different outcomes if one is saving 10% and the other is saving 25%. That gap compounds every single year. Third, avoiding lifestyle inflation. As income rises, expenses tend to rise right along with it for most people, which means their savings rate actually stays flat or drops even as they earn more. The people who hit these milestones early are usually the ones who kept their lifestyle roughly the same while their income grew, and redirected the difference into investments instead of upgrades. There is also a psychological pattern worth mentioning here. Most people expect their net worth to grow in a straight line, but it does not. It grows in a hockey stick shape, painfully slow for years, and then dramatically faster once the base is large enough for compounding to take over. If you are in your 20s or early 30s and your net worth feels embarrassingly small right now, that is not a red flag, that is completely normal, and it is actually the exact same stage almost everyone who eventually hit seven figures went through. The mistake is not being behind at 25, the mistake is giving up during that slow invisible growth phase because it does not feel rewarding yet. If you want to speed up your own timeline through these milestones, the strategy is not complicated, even if it is not easy. Automate your investing so it happens before you have a chance to spend the money. Increase your contribution percentage every time your income increases, instead of just increasing your spending. Use tax-advantaged accounts like your TFSA and RRSP as aggressively as your situation allows, because the tax savings alone can shave years off your timeline. And avoid the trap of trying to get rich quickly through high-risk bets, because the Canadians who consistently hit these milestones almost never got there through a lucky trade, they got there through decades of boring, repeated, unglamorous consistency. So where does that leave you? If you already know your current net worth, you can actually estimate your own timeline to $100,000, $500,000, and $1 million based on your current savings rate and average market returns, and honestly, most people are shocked at how much earlier they could get there just by tightening a few habits starting today. Comment below and tell me which milestone you are closest to right now, 100,000, 500,000, or the big one, $1 million, because I genuinely want to know where this audience stands. And if this video gave you a clearer picture of your own financial timeline, hit that subscribe button, because next week we are breaking down exactly how much you need saved at each age to retire comfortably in Canada, and the number at 40 might surprise you. Stay smart with your money. I am James, this has been Canadian Finance Hub, and I will see you in the next one.